Alright, what's up guys? This is the Honest Outlaw here, and today we're going to be doing a cleaning video on the new Glock Gen 5. Now I'm going to apologize in advance if there's a little bit of confusion in the video, or if we don't get the audio and video as good as we normally have it. This is the first cleaning video that I've done, and I don't really watch too many cleaning videos on YouTube, so I don't really have a formula or anything. Here we go. First thing we're going to do is, as soon as we get done with the gauntlet test, I bring it inside, and I disassemble it the best that I can, which means basically just field stripping. Then I wash it out with water, which I've already done. Sorry about that, but I didn't want to wait. We actually had to wait a day because my wife had a wedding she had to film. So this has been sitting here for a whole day. So we washed it out with water, and then we sprayed it with CLP. And after that, it just sat there for a day. And now we're going to clean it off. So I'm going to go through it again, and I'm going to wash it down with water real quick to try to replicate what I do. That way you guys can see it. And then we'll CLP it, and then we'll completely strip it, and we'll clean it and put it back together. You can still see there's a ton of stuff in there, so there's going to be a lot of stuff we have to clean. But the first thing I do is just run it under water like this, and just give it a good scrub with my steel brush, brass brush, whatever you want to use. Some people are going to say that you should use brass, or bronze rather, whatever you want to use. Plastic, I have all kinds of them. I have a bunch of cleaning kits available. But just get the general stuff out. When you do the gauntlet test, you get so much stuff inside the gun that you can't even actually take it apart. Glocks are kind of difficult to clean after the gauntlet test because of these little tabs here. You get stuff under the takedown levers, and you can't actually pull them down. So a lot of times I have to put channel locks on these and pull them down while I'm pressing it, and that's a pretty good time. But we just give it a good rinse out. My wife loves this too, by the way. She loves me using her kitchen sink for guns and oil and stuff. Then we hit the barrel a little bit, try to get all the stuff out. The barrel you can pretty much clean just like this because they don't have a lot of crevices and stuff like that. Now you're going to want to give it a thorough cleaning anyway, that we don't have any rusting or any problems with the rifling or anything like that. But still, this is pretty good. The internal parts of the slide are usually the toughest to get to with all the grime and the grit and stuff, because we'll end up having to take the back plate off and getting all the internals and everything out and completely stripping it. Now one positive of the Glock is that you can really strip it down pretty easy without being very gun savvy.
Yep.
Alright, so now we're going to take the mags apart. The easiest way I found to do that, just since I have a vise, is I just use the vise to push down the tabs. Then I use my punch, which isn't going to work because the mags are so dirty. Oh, there we go. I can't get this thing apart. Oh, there we go. Look at all the dirt.
I don't know if I can get that close. Yeah. So what did you do there?
So there's these little tabs right here. You just have to squeeze them, whether you do that with the channel locks, your fingers if you got some tough hands, or just a vise is super easy, because if you only have two sets of hands, you have to squeeze this, push down the tab, and pull the tab at the same time. There's a little locking piece right here that holds the magazine base plate on. And you just push that down and slide the base plate off. But it's easier with a vise because the vise will hold it for you, and you don't have to do it with only two hands. So we're going to do that with this mag, and we're going to do that with the other three.
So that's all the parts of the mag?
Yep, that's it right there.
The thing?
Yep.
The other thing?
Follower, the base plate, the little attachment thing that I forget the name of right now, and the magazine.
So there's like
and the
4 pieces?
Yep.
Okay, 4 pieces.
Yep, magazines are the heart of the gun, but they're also pretty simple.
And for those people that don't have a punch, could they use something else instead?
Yeah, you could use like a pen, or you could use, I use an Allen wrench key all the time. Something like this. This is incredibly dirty, but I use that all the time. And as you can see, the magazines are super dirty as well. And magazines are pretty interchangeable. You don't have to worry about mixing up the pieces. Look at all that stuff that was inside it.
Yep.
I think one of these would come off easy. That way we could get some good B-roll. So now we just take them and we just rinse them under the sink. Now some people clean these off with oil, some people lube them up afterward. I might spray some TLP on them and brush them, but I don't really oil my magazines too much. Now when I'm doing this cleaning video, you have to remember this is just how I clean my guns. And I shoot, you know, somewhere in the area of 10,000 plus rounds a year, so obviously it works for me. But if it doesn't work for you, that's completely fine. If you learn a different technique, that's fine too. I actually am going to take some CLP and clean out the metal insert that's inside here. Now most people think Glock magazines are polymer and all polymer, but I don't know if you can see this or not, but you can actually see the metal insert pretty well when you take the gun apart. The entire inside of it's got a little metal sheet there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some CLP and I'm just going to scrape some of that to make sure that the water and sand and stuff doesn't get a little rust in there and make the magazines not work correctly. So the magazine's the heart of a semi-automatic gun. Take care of your magazines every once in a while, take them apart, clean them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to CLP them real quick. I guess I'll do one on camera. I'm certainly not going to do all three though. You know, Glocks always use this super high-tech finish and stuff like that, but I gotta admit, the one thing I don't like about Glocks is that out of all my polymer guns, Glocks rust the easiest. Does it really affect function? Not really. Just make sure that you watch your Glock. I've had my Glock 43 rust. All the new generations, Gen 4 and up, have a little bit of an issue with rust. So we're gonna clean that out. We'll take a brush and we'll make sure all that's nice and dry, then we'll put it back together. I don't know if you guys can see it on camera, but that's one day. That's one day. So not only did we put it through the water, but after that, we took it out and we rinsed it, so we got a good amount of water on these, right? The only problem is after that, I CLP'd the crap out of it too. So it shouldn't have rusted. Look at how much rust is on this. One day. The other thing I wanted to mention really quick before I start is that it's going to be a little more difficult, I think, to do it on camera and try to watch the camera and make sure you guys see everything. So if I mess up a little bit, just laugh and don't give me too much crap about it. So let's start with the slide here. We're going to take the slide apart first. How you do that is you just take your little punch here, press down, push the base plate off, and have the spring and plunger shoot out at you and hit you in the face. Because that's what just happened to me. That's okay. When you normally take down a Glock, you can push that down and shoot it kind of smooth, but when there's all kinds of sand and dirt and everything in there, the back plate's really hard to push off, so you really got to give it a lot of pressure, and I just kind of let the spring shoot out, and that will happen. So the next thing you do is you pull out the guts, the striker and the firing pin and stuff. There that is. See if we can get out the... There we go. We got that piece out. My mic got unplugged, so I'm going to voice over this part really quick. That's the extractor plunger there, and this is the extractor that I'm pulling out. Normally you push down the extractor plunger to release the pressure and just take the extractor out. In this case, I pushed it down and just kind of shot out at me and the extractor stayed in. That's kind of weird, but it is a new design. After that, I'm going to spray it with some CLP, leave it sit for a minute, then I'm going to brush it down, and we'll get the rest of the gun cleaned up. So now we're going to work on the lower portion here, and what I already did was I already punched out the pin for the back strap, and I already punched out the pin for the lower frame because they're incredibly dirty and they're kind of tough to do. But what I did basically was I took a roll of duct tape, just put it on top, and just pounded the pin out, and believe it or not, I used another Gen 4 for the hammer, so that's kind of funny. But you just punch those two pins out, then we're going to take the locking block out real quick. Probably going to have to pry that out. Oh, it came out kind of easy. Maybe it did. And there's our dual slide releases. As you see there, that's kind of neat. I've never taken down a Gen 5 before, so this should be a learning experience for both of us. But that's kind of a cool little design. Probably end up losing some parts, freaking out. Probably be some swearing in this video as well, I imagine. Alright, now there's our trigger group. Look how dirty that is. No wonder why we had some reset problems. Some people in the video commented that it could be the return spring is a little light. I'd probably agree with that. That seems to be a common pattern these days for manufacturers to put out guns with a lighter return spring. Some of the guns that I've seen in Mac's Gauntlet videos also had that same issue. So we're going to have to do some serious cleaning on this gun. And when I get these internal parts out, I'm also going to take them to the sink and rinse them off as well. So we got that apart, and we're pretty much field stripped with the Glock. I'll probably take out the magazine catch and do that as well. Hard to say if I'll be able to do that on camera. With an oily, dirty gun, that's kind of difficult. But the idea, if you guys can see in there, I don't know if you can or not, but you see this little tab right here. All you do is push that sideways and pull it out, and the magazine release comes right out with it. It's really easy on a Glock. So now we're going to take the takedown lever out real quick, and instead of a leaf spring, it's just a regular spring now on the Gen 5. So I think it's actually, I don't know if it's more difficult or easier, but it took me a second to figure out. I basically just took my Glock disassembly tool, my Spyderco Endura 4 here, and I just pressed down the spring, and I just shoved on it real hard, and it came out. So we're going to pull this out like this, and when you do this, make sure that spring doesn't fire up and hit you in the face. So there's your takedown lever right there. Then we'll get that spring out and we'll clean out that little recess where that spring sits as well, because that's going to be very dirty. And then we'll take our Glock disassembly tool and we'll see if we can get the mag release out. So I pop that little thing out right there, as you see there. The easiest way to do that is just with a mini screwdriver or the knife blade or whatever you want to do. Then you just push your magazine out like that, and you can go whichever way. There we go. And just kind of pull it out like that. Now again, I'm not the expert Glock takedown guy. I've never claimed to be a great gunsmith, but I do an okay job. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take apart the trigger. We're going to do that is just pull it out like that. And apparently, that's weird. Is there no spring there now? There used to be a spring that held these two together, but apparently that no longer exists. So it's going to be a learning experience. We're going to do this together. I have no idea how I just took that apart either. Well, this will be fun. So we'll have to take all this apart and clean it out as well. That was really in there. Oh man. Sorry, I'm just looking this over to see what I may be missing and may not be missing here. What we have is the lower parts, the upper parts, the slide, and the frame, and we're just going to rinse them off real quick and then spray them with some duster. Duster's really good to get stuff out of the crevices you can't reach with a brush. Or if you're lazy like me and just don't want to take the trigger group apart completely, you can just spray a bunch of dust in there, spray a bunch of water in there, and it's usually good to go. Well, that happens sometimes. That's why you want your sink to be empty, and you have your little cover over it as well. Probably should take the striker apart, but we'll see. It looks alright. Just spray the shit out of it.
Wise advice.
It looks surprisingly clean though. Kind of surprised about that. Compared to all the other parts. Like I don't really see any mud or anything on it at all. Huh. Well, maybe that'll just save me a little trouble. A lot of these parts are actually cleaner than they were on the CZ-P10C. Now, the P10C I think did a little bit better in the Gauntlet test, but it was actually a little bit dirtier inside as well. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe there's a little bit of space. Maybe there's a little more tolerances between the slide and the frame. But the Glock Gen 5, at the very least, seems to be a little cleaner internally in the upper portion, but in the lower portion, it's very, very dirty. Alright, so now that we got our parts cleaned and dried out, now that's an important thing that I want to say, is that you can clean it with water. You want to make sure that you dry it. So I dried it out with some paper towels and we got some even more grime off it. And now what we're going to do is probably going to oil it up a little bit again, and we're going to deep clean it by taking a brush and some other tools, and we're going to try to get all the grime and dirt out of all the little crevices that you probably thought you got when you put it through the sink, but you didn't actually get. So there's going to be a little bit more stuff, and how we're going to do that, we're going to do that a couple different ways, and we're going to be using some old pieces of t-shirt that I cut. A lot of people buy patches. I'm cool with that, but I've got a lot of old t-shirts, so I usually just cut them up with the scissors and use those. So I guess we'll just start with the frame, and we'll work from there. So what we're going to try to do now is, like I said, we got almost all the stuff clean. We're just going to hit it with just a little bit of CLP in these little cracks here, and we're just going to use our punch and some other little weird tools, and we're going to see if we can get all the grime and dirt out of all those little crevices. Now, if you're going to do this on a metal framed gun or something like that, you'd want to use something that isn't a metal tool. I'm not too worried about scratching up my Glock. If I was, I wouldn't have put it through the Gauntlet test to start out with. But you always remember, if you're going to do something with like a nice 1911 or something like that, you're going to want to use polymer tools or brass tools or something like that. Something that doesn't have the strength enough to scratch your frame. So we got that out. Then we'll get these little areas right here out. Actually got it pretty good in the sink, so that's kind of nice. But you can still see there's definitely some sand. That baby sand is a nightmare. Play sand, whatever you want to call it. Baby sand sounds funnier. We got that pretty good. Nice. On to the slide. Slide's probably the hardest part to deep clean. I guess it should be, because it's got the most crevices. Slide rails, I bet, are still going to be really dirty. Where's my brush? What happened to my brush? I got a brass one right here. This is kind of what I was talking about the brass brushes. Get the slide rails nice and clean, because they're what probably gets the most friction on the gun. And if your slide rails are super dirty, it's going to cause some serious malfunction. So make sure you get them nice and clean. You can see even after all that, there's still plenty of stuff in there. Which is what makes doing the Gauntlet test so much fun. Just get these slide rails nice and clean is all we're going to be doing. I have to do a lot of cutting in this video because it's got to be boring watching me just clean this gun. Cut it with some footage of me trying to do a handstand or something maybe. No, I'm not an absolute clean Nazi either, I might add. My guns are okay being a little bit dirty, so this might not be up to some of your guys' specifications, and that's okay. Everybody's specifications are different. Again, the cool thing about Glocks is that honestly, if I would have just rinsed this out with water and sprayed some CLP on it, it probably would have ran fine. I like it to be a little more clean, especially because I do reviews, and I don't want my poor treatment of the gun to affect my judgment of how the gun is supposed to function. Take our little brush here, see if we can get up in that striker channel. Clean that out just a little bit. Patch is a little too big, but that's okay. It's actually really clean, as you can see. That's crazy to me. It's crazy to me how clean that channel is. Even on my Gen 4 it was way dirtier than that, so I don't know what they did, but they must be doing something right. There's a little dirt in this spot here, but not too bad. Yeah, it's actually pretty clean. That's crazy. Huh. Saves me some trouble. So I'll probably do a time lapse of this, because this is basically just going to be a whole video of me spraying these with a little bit of CLP, brushing them, and then cleaning them off with a patch. If I run into anything interesting, I will stop the awesome time lapse and show you that personally. A little bit of rust on the barrel there. Apparently I shouldn't have left some water in it all night. That's not good. However, it doesn't say that much for Glock's coating either. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the exact opposite of what we did before. We're going to install the magazine latch. So I had to do that off camera really quick, but we just installed the magazine release. You just take that little tab. I stuck my screwdriver inside the empty part of the magazine, pried it up just like that, and then shoved it in. That's how I do it. How you do it might be different. Now we take it, we go underneath like that, and we press it in just like that, relatively easy. I got a moth flying around here as well. Okay, it looks like that's actually pretty easy. All you do there, stick the indent in this side, and instead of that spring being on the back, now it's in the front, it looks like. You just shove it in that little hole right there, and then it fits up just nicely. That's really easy. That is a big improvement over the other one, if in fact I have it correct. We'll find out when we put it together and try to make it work, but if that is how it works, that's really easy and really nice, so no more trying to hook that stupid spring. Another thing we got to do real quick that might be a pain in the ass, we'll see, is the takedown lever. As I said again, used to have a leaf spring right here, and you would just depress that and slide it in. Now it has an actual spring here that fits inside a little recess in there. So we'll stick that guy back in there. And what happens is you face it the right direction, and you just slide it in, and it should go in. So pretty easy. What I did was I just stuck my knife in there, my trusty Glock takedown tool. I just shoved it in there, pushed the thing in, and it went in, no problem at all. Just as easy as the previous generation, just a little bit different technique. So now that we have the takedown lever in, and it's functional, and we have the magazine release in, we are going to replace the trigger group. So we'll stick that in there. Maybe we will. Get something holding up there. Oh, it looks like the trigger was stuck right there. Now we got that in there and all the holes are lined up. See how this fits in there real quick. Just like that. Line it up. Stick your locking block in. Got that right down there just like that. Stick one pin in. You don't need your tape for this. Okay. There we go. So you're just gonna have to kind of line up the slide release as needed and get that pin in. We'll put our back strap back on. For those of you who've never owned a Gen 4, the back straps are pretty simple. They basically hook up underneath there, and this part just hooks up on the beaver tail, and then you stick the pin right through. Now you can't use the stock pin, but it does come with a pin for it. So just like that, and sometimes they can be kind of a pain in the ass just because they don't line up perfectly. And because I'm using a Gen 4 Glock as a hammer. But what do you do? Left my hammer downstairs, and I'm lazy, so make sure that just clips like that. Take my punch real quick. Press it down, make sure it's in there firm. And our lower is back together. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our upper slide back together. Now, the Gen 5 is a little bit different than the Gen 4. Sorry I didn't mention that before, but as you can see, this little extractor detent, or whatever you want to call it, as you can see, it's circular here. It's kind of an odd shape on the Gen 5s. I'll pull it out and show you real quick. This is the little part I'm talking about. Now, I'm not going to get the technical names of the parts right, but I didn't build the Glock either. I just take it apart and put it back together, get it dirty, and shoot it. So this is what it looks like here, and I believe this is how you put it back in. We're going to find out together, but I think this part faces up like that, and you press that down with some pressure. Then we're going to stick our extractor in there, and then when you pull up, your extractor should stay in there. Then we're going to take our spring, stick it on our little plunger thing here, Stick that in there like that. And then what this does is this puts pressure on the inside of this little D10 thing here. So we'll get that in there. Then we'll get our striker assembly, our firing pin and all that in there. Maybe we will. There we go. Alright, so now we got that in there after me being a dumbass for a couple of minutes. So what I like to do is I like to take my end plate and I like to get it started in a little resets here. And then I like to take a, anything that's wide enough to press this down. Little screwdriver, whatever. Press that down. Get it started, get it pushed up to there. And then take my punch. Press it down. Ow, or be a dumbass. Get it down and then get the plate back in like that. So, with any luck, our Glock should be fairly reassembled. We'll have to see here in a second. We'll put our barrel in. Our marksman barrel. And a recoil spring. Like that. Our Gen 5 lower. Fingers crossed here now. Fingers crossed. That works. Works just fine. So, I guess that is how you disassemble, reassemble, and clean your Glock Gen 5. Now, the 19 and 17, I would imagine, are going to be very similar in function, so you can probably do the same things on your Glock 17 as I did on my Glock 19. If any of the other generations are an example, they are almost exactly the same, so you shouldn't have any trouble. Honestly, I kind of think that cleaning even improved the trigger pull a little bit. I was worried actually getting some of the sand and stuff in there would decrease the trigger pull, but I feel like it actually, with all the cleaning and stuff, maybe the shooting, it actually smoothed it out a little bit. So, there you go. There's your video. If you like this video, sorry if it's, like I said, a little less professional than usual. This is the first cleaning video I've ever done, and maybe the last, we'll see. But I wanted to do it because the Glock Gen 5 is a little bit different. I wanted to take it apart and show you the parts, and I understand that, again, it wasn't very professional. I didn't know all the names of the parts, but I've taken down and put back together a ton of Glocks, so hopefully the formula works for you as well. Please like and subscribe. Please help out your local homeless shelters, and remember to recycle. I'll check you later.